Is the speaker on?
Yes.
Okay. I'll call our September meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. Our first item is a presentation on our van pool service by Alan Robbins with Enterprise. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you guys so much for taking the time. So we're super excited about our new renewing of the partnership with Embark. And so just kind of wanted to roll through kind of just a couple things real fast. Y'all have access to this presentation, and I will be hanging out after the meeting if anybody has additional questions, but just trying to be respectful of everyone's time. So Commute with Enterprise is a nationwide program. We're within 48 states of the country. And so just kind of like to let you all know that, you know, this is a nationwide program, not just local. So we're able to take some of the expertise that we have across the country and bring it here locally. We also have a lot of different transit agency partnerships that we've had, and have been able to get a lot of the kinks worked out of that system. As far as what van pooling is, I always feel like it's important to just mention, briefly go over, van pooling is really just like a large carpool. We get a group of 4 to 15 individuals in a vehicle. The vehicle has to have at least 7 seatbelts for it to be a van pool. They either meet together in one location and drive into work together, or they can pick people up along the way. The idea is that this decreases everyone's burden of their commute. Not everyone's having to be behind the wheel. Ideally, they share that responsibility. And so when people show up to work, they're more refreshed. They've also saved money. So they're able to work better, but also have some more money in their back pocket. The main reason why, we're seeing employers just jump on this program, and we've seen a lot of uptick nationwide in the last couple months, is our emphasis on recruiting and retention. With this being a situation where people are no longer having to worry about their car breaking down, cost of gas and how it fluctuates, it's causing people to be able to stay at their jobs. And it's also a very attractive way for a company to be able to seek out individuals that may have been further away from their normal recruiting radius. It's helping with employee wellness initiatives, parking facilities. On just one van pool, if it's just a minivan, we can look at decreasing parking spaces being used by 5 to 6 per van pool. And then the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece has been a real big one recently. We actually just met with New View, Oklahoma yesterday, and that's a big part of what we're looking at is how can we assist those people with a more equitable ride to work where they're not having to wait an hour, 2 hours to get home after work. And it also is going to decrease some of their overall costs, but the equitable part of that is really exciting. Reasons why the employees really enjoy the van pooling program. First is that we put them in a new recent model vehicle. The number of times that I put someone in a new vehicle and they are amazed that it's got 100, 200 miles on it. I just love seeing that eye light up on their face where they're just like, I've never driven a car this new before. The month-to-month convenience, these vans don't have a long-term contract. People aren't locked in for a year or a 3-year contract. It's a 30-day contract. Now, we find nationwide average length of rental is about 6 years, which I think is a great testament to the savings and also the community that's built in these van pools. They do come with comprehensive insurance, so they don't have to worry about all that. We also, because we use a driver who is going to work or coming from work, they're not being paid to drive. This falls outside of a workman comp umbrella, so it does not increase any liability or exposure to the employer. All our vans come with full maintenance, 24-hour roadside assistance, and when we combine all that together along with the recent subsidy from Embark, we're seeing significant savings for those employees that are using the program. I threw this slide together, and I've used it a couple of times when showing people in sustainability areas of their company, kind of some of the potentials of van pooling at a work site. So if we're just looking at a 500 employee work site, statistically, about a third of those individuals live outside of a 10-mile radius, which is where we typically try to focus our efforts. Out of that group, usually about 50 would be potential van poolers. And then we'd be looking at potentially about 9 van pools. Running 9 van pools, having an average commute of about 43 miles into work, we're going to be seeing, 920,000 commuter miles reduced annually, a little over 700,000 pounds of CO2 reduction. In that work site, they'd be looking at 41 parking spaces that they're no longer using. And then those employees that are able to take advantage of that program are going to be saving $436,000. I just love those numbers when we start looking at it because we see the benefit for the employee and we also see all the benefits for the employer. And that is really the idea behind the commute program, is that it's a win-win for both the employer and the employee. Now with Embark, with that $400 subsidy, if we're looking at an average cost on a van, a minivan before tax of about $1,400, with the $400 subsidy, we're looking at $1,000. Most employers right now we're seeing are offering a partial subsidy on the van pools as well. They see the benefit of the program. They're seeing reduction in recruitment costs, so they're able to kind of offset that with subsidizing part of the van pool. So if we're looking at a 50-50 subsidy with the van pool, then the employer's paying about $500. The employees in the van pool are paying about $500. If that minivan's only got 5 occupants, it could have up to 7. Then we're looking at about $100 a month for those employees that are in the van pool, which I spend a lot more than $100 a month on my commute. I don't know about y'all. So now, how do we do it? One of the ways that we assist our partner employers with van pooling is through our mapping program. We get anonymized data, so we'll get like an employee ID number, the home addresses, and the shifts of the employees that are working. And then we map together and are able to get these cluster datas on who lives where and at what time they're leaving, so we can see who would be good groups to couple together for the van pooling program. And we realize that sometimes those individuals that live within the 10-mile radius also need assistance with getting that last little bit to work. And so a lot of times our individuals that are coming from further out will pick someone up along their way within that 10-mile radius to assist them with that kind of final leg into work. So that's the quick, fast, and easy, the Commute with Enterprise program. Just like I said, I'm super excited. We also met with a representative from Tinker Air Force Base yesterday. James over there, that's the second time I met with him. And so they're excited about opportunities there as well. I don't know if we have any times for questions, or if we do have a little time for a question if anybody has.
Have you got any already set up?
I'm sorry?
Have you got any already set up?
Not in Oklahoma City, no. We, like I said, we're in talks with Newview. That's going to be the one that's going to happen sooner than Tinker. Tinker's going to be a little bit longer of a process, but Tinker's cool because on top of the $400 subsidy that Embark's putting in, there's also some federal money that'll come through their TransServe cards for them being federal employees.
Okay. Any other questions, any of the trustees? All right, Alan, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
I don't know of any residents to be heard, so our next item is approval of our minutes of our August 5th board meeting. Any changes or additions or corrections any of the trustees have? If not, I'd have a motion to approve. Come up. There we go. All right. It's been moved and seconded and approved, so thank you. Well, we've got kind of a short consent docket, only 3 items on the consent docket. They're pretty self-explanatory unless any of the trustees have any questions. Then I'd have a motion to approve our consent docket. Been moved and seconded and motion approved. One item on our individual consideration, and that's plans and specifications to be advertised for bids on the transit center lighting and building renovations. Oh, Jesse?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chairman, trustees, for Josh. Buongiorno. Welcome back, man. Yeah, right. Yeah, so we've got a remodel project for the transit center. Our transit center was built in the mid-90s, starting to show its age a little bit, so we've got a small little project to update it just a little bit. I'm going to go through that a little bit and talk about some of the nuances of it here. Maybe, okay. All right, so there are two packages. The first package is MB 1576-1. There's a base bid and an alternate. Our base bid takes care of these yellow dots, which are the canopy lights on the exterior of the transit center. And the next part of the base bid includes the pole lights, so the replacement of the base and the poles, and all of these fixture replacements are new LED fixtures. So right now they're incandescent lights, and so we're bringing those up to date with LED fixtures. And then the alternate is the replacement of the under canopy lights, right? So at the building, there are lights in the soffit, and so we're replacing those lights with LED lights. So that's the base bid. And the alternate, this is just a zoomed in photo of the transit center with the soffit lights showing the placement of that. That'll come in and be important here in just a second. The next slide shows our next project, which is MB 1576-2. The base bid includes one of my favorite parts of this project is adding an additional interior wall. So essentially, we are making the north side of the transit center available for our operators. So if you see that little pink line there, kind of toward the top of that building is our existing operator break room. It's essentially about 12 square feet. And so back in the 90s, that was, ample room for our operators that were coming in there. But now we've got, every 30 minutes, we've got 25 operators that are coming to the transit center, and they need a little bit more space to be able to spread out and be able to use our transit center efficiently. The next slide here shows the replacement of existing millwork, right? So that orange square, that's our customer service bubble. We're replacing all the millwork inside the customer service bubble, and also back there in the existing current break room, we're replacing that millwork also so that we can repurpose that area. Next slide here shows the big one, right? The big public-facing part of this remodel is the update and remodel of our public restrooms. So we're right now, if you've been inside those public restrooms, it's a little dark and gray and kind of sad. And so we're brightening it up, putting in new LED fixtures, and making it more, open to the public. Next slide. Now we start jumping into the alternates of that second project. So the first alternate is the building canopy lighting. And so you notice that that's the same alternate that was in the first package. So I want to explain that a little bit. So that first package, we're thinking that we could get just a general lighting contractor that could bid on that project, right? So there's a possibility of us being able to reduce costs by having this broken out into two separate projects. So that first project, we could have a general lighting contractor bid it because it's just electrical work. The second project, it's got more of the building plus some electrical. So there's the likelihood that a general contractor will bid that, and then we'll have a general lighting contractor as a subcontractor to them. Okay? So next slide here is alternate number 2. We're adding additional canopy lights, right? So all the areas in between those current lights that we plan to replace, we're adding additional lights. So our direction to our engineer was we want this to be super bright and super inviting and super safe. We were like, think on cue, go brighter, right? So we wanted it super bright. And so by doing that and by adding these additional lights to the building, we feel like that's going to achieve that goal. Our next alternate is replacing of the ballistic glazing at the customer service bubble, right? So again, this was built back in the 90s, and at a certain point it's exceeded its useful life, and so we want to make sure that we bring that up to standard. Alternate 4 is probably one of the most important alternates because, again, HVAC system, it's been in use since the mid-90s, so we're anticipating replacing that HVAC system, which also includes additional access. So right now, for our staff to be able to perform repairs or anything on the existing units, they have to get ladders and crawl through this little bitty tiny hole, and then they have to drop 3 feet to get to the attic space. So this actually adds a ladder access and improves safety. And then the final alternate is an HVAC enclosure. So with one more slide there, that purple box in the top northwest corner, that's where the replacement HVAC system will go. And this alternate number 5 provides an enclosure for that new system. That is it. That is our proposed project. So the timeline is, if it's approved today, to go out to bid. We anticipate bringing back in November, bringing back our recommendation for the approval of the contractor, and then we'll issue a notice of receipt shortly after that. And then we anticipate about a 4-month construction process. So we'd look to be wrapping up probably late spring, early summer. Estimated construction budget is $1.6 million. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
When was the transit center opened? You're mentioning the 90s, and I know that's about sometime in the...
I knew somebody was going to ask me that. I've been doing a lot of research trying to figure that out. I think it was like around 95, 96. I've had a hard time trying to nail down the exact date.
Don't we have a
think
plaque on the building?
My best recollection also is 95.
Yeah.
Don't we have a plaque on the building that tells us?
Man, you're smart. Yeah, I should probably check that, shouldn't I? That's a
Well, I
great
remember
point.
when we christened it, but I didn't know for sure when, so.
Yeah, I love doing the history part of it because I was finding pictures of the old transit center that was downtown near the Myriad Gardens, and I've got some pictures of that from back in the day, and then just trying to find that exact date. Yeah, but you're 100% right. There's definitely a plaque there that would have the date on it. Yeah, great suggestion.
Okay, well, all right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Then I'd hear a motion to approve item A. It's been moved and seconded, and motion passes. All right, next item is ratification of claims and payroll. Any questions there? If not, I'd have a motion to ratify. All right, motion passes. All right, our financial reports. I guess you're going to do that
Yeah,
for us
thank
today.
you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to fill in for Suzanne today. And if I could direct the trustees to page 2 of the budget to actual. Keep in mind, this is our first budget to actual for the new fiscal year that started July 1st. So obviously, it's a little bit hard to determine trends with 1 month of data, but I will try to walk through a couple of items in the reports and then also point out just a couple of nuances that come with receiving the first financial report of the year. So looking at page 2, this is our transportation operations, and starting with the revenues, direct your attention to the first 2 lines. This is primarily our fare box sales for fixed route bus, and through the first month of the fiscal year, we're exceeding our target on our revenue. So you can see for fare box and fare media sales, we're roughly 130% or 155% of our budget. So we're off to a good start in terms of fare box collections. If you want to move down to kind of the midsection of the revenues, and I know we talk about these 3 revenue lines each month, but this is federal grants, our FTA CARES reimbursement, and then our American Rescue Plan revenues. Would just direct your attention to federal grants. You'll notice we've actually drawn about $560,000 less of our, let's say, normal 5307 formula funding, but that is offset by, as you can see, 98,000 more in CARES revenue and about 665,000 more in American Rescue Plan revenue than what we had budgeted. Yes, sir.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the farebox media and the increase there, which seems to be substantial, is that because we had the sale, the 6-month reduced half-price sale?
So
Does that have an impact, or?
It would have an impact, but we typically do that the same time every year. So ideally, we would have had that figured into our budget. It really, I guess, would just depend on it if we sold substantially more during that half-price sale than we did the year before. So we can check on that.
I like revenue up, but I
Yeah,
just didn't know whether
right.
that was impactful
So-
in that figure.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll look to see, for example, did we generate a lot more revenue this year with that half-price sale than we did the previous year? I think also part of it has to do with, just as we have tried to develop our revenue projections based on, recovering our ridership, we have been pretty conservative on that. And as Jesse shares the transit system report later with you, he'll have details, but overall, you can see our fixed route bus ridership was pretty strong in July compared to some of the other modes. So that probably contributed to it too. But yeah, we'll get you an answer on the half-price sale for sure. Thank you. So yeah, any of the revenue that is under target on federal grants, we more than made up for with our CARES and our American Rescue Plan funding. And then directing your attention to the expenditures. Again, this is only 1 month worth of expenditures, but you can see that all are, within roughly 90% of what we had anticipated spending. And then directing your attention to the bottom line, if you will, there, the operating loss or income, you can see our overall revenues through 1 month of the fiscal year have exceeded our expenses by just over $1 million. And of course, again, 1 month into the fiscal year, that's going to change substantially. All right, so if we could move on to page 4, this is our parking operations. Have a few items to share with you on our parking operations. Again, looking at the revenues, if you'll notice the first revenue line there, the monthly contract revenue, we're about $65,000 more than what we had projected to be at the end of this first month. So again, certainly off to a good start in terms of monthly contract revenue. And you may have noticed on your parking report, or you might take a look at that, the reason for that overage really is that we have about 500 more contract parkers at this time than we did a year ago in July. And so that's certainly contributing to that. And keep in mind, we developed these revenue estimates back in January, February, as we're kind of wrapping up the budget. And so things obviously change. And in this case, it's changed for the good, and that we've been able to actually add contract parkers since that time.
Jason, is it defined, is it in one particular location where we've seen the increase?
Yeah, we've primarily seen it in the Cox Center garage with Prairie Surf Studios as they added parkers as production ramped up.
Okay.
So that's the primary driver of that overage. And so then if I could direct your attention to the expenditure section of our parking report. This is where I'll point out a couple of nuances here with the first financial of the year. You'll notice the first expenditure line there, parking garage operations. We have a total annual budget of about $2.9 million, and yet no budget or expenses for the current month. And again, just as a reminder, that's because this report is essentially on a cash basis, if you will. And so we've incurred expenses in July. We'll pay those in August, and that's when we'll actually start seeing some of those expenditures hit the budget to actual. So as we do every month, we try to footnote on the report what we estimate those expenses to be. So you'll notice, I believe it's footnote 3 there, where we're estimating about $200,000 of expenses associated with our contracted parking vendor that we've incurred. We'll pay them in August, and you'll start seeing those on, I guess, the August financial. In addition to that, you'll notice in your payroll and claims that you approved, we also have the first operating advance, if you will, to our new contracted parking operator, PCI. So again, that's an expense we paid in July. You'll see that on the August financial. And then finally, I just wanted to explain a little bit of an overage on the other services and fees. Again, it's not a large dollar amount, but you'll see we're over budget by $22,000 through the first month of the fiscal year. Again, not a huge dollar variance, but about 175% more than what we had anticipated. And that's primarily due to expenses that we paid to, the overage, I should say, is due primarily to some expenses we had with Weatherby Electric. They maintain our Skidata parking system, and then also includes about $7,000 worth of electricity, OG&E invoices. So that's the overage there. We obviously, again, when we were developing the budget, probably didn't anticipate having that significant Weatherby expense at the time. I should point out the operating and loss income 1 month through the fiscal year is about $375,000. So we're $375,000 more in revenue than expenses, but I've mentioned some expenses that we've incurred that aren't reflected. And then finally, I'll just direct your attention to page 7. This is our streetcar operations. Again, expenses and revenues through 1 month of the fiscal year. Probably the noteworthy item on this report would again be looking at the streetcar operations. Again, our streetcar is our streetcar service is provided by a contract vendor. So again, very similar to what we do with our parking contract vendor. We will incur expenses and then pay them the following month. So streetcar operation, total budget, $4.1 million of expenses expected. We have not paid anything through July, but you'll notice your footnote number 3 there. We've estimated about $348,000 of expenses that we've incurred. So appreciate you letting me take the time to point out just some of those nuances with the first financial report of the fiscal year. Happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions? All right. Fine, then I'll have a motion to receive our financial reports. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, I think next thing we have a couple of program reports. Marketing, community engagement, technology. Oh, you're a TV star. You've sure been on TV a lot lately.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this morning about our activities. And yes, we've had some attention in the media lately, all good. And I hope you've had a chance to also take a look at what's going on with the RTA. OETA did a recent story on that, and we'll be sharing that out in our newsletter as well. So I hope you get a chance to take a look at it. It's a lot of fun. Before I go further into our presentation, I just want to take a moment. It's not very often I get to have my team with me this morning, and so I'd like to introduce them and just recognize the professionalism and just their commitment to this organization. So with us this morning, we have Taishika Hawley. She's our creative strategist, and she's been with us for about 5 years. Next to her, we have Megan Henderson, and she's our marketing strategist, and she's been with us since 2020.
Hold up your hands.
Yeah, you can wave or stand up. I should have given some instructions, yeah. And then Lloyd Rosen, he's been with us just a little over a year, and he's our digital media strategist. He helps us with a lot of the videos that we're producing in-house. And then also our newest addition is Cody Boyd, just right here behind Jesse. He came to us from ODOT with more than a decade of experience in their public information office there. And he is helping us with our community engagement and public information efforts. We don't have with me today, they're at the office taking care of things, but Jared Early is our network administrator. He works with me on our IT team, and he's been with us right at a decade now, right at 10 years. So he's helped shepherd a lot of the changes that we've seen over the years in our technology, and is a big part of what we're going to be talking about this morning as well. And then we also have Corey Stroud. He's relatively new to Embark, but has been with the city for a few years. He joined us last fall. So these professionals, I get to get up here and talk about all the great things that they're doing. This, again, is not an effort that is anything about me, but rather the collective effort that they're doing every day. So I really appreciate their efforts and their commitment, and sometimes hair pulling, because we get to ask them a lot of last minute things and they take care of it with a lot of grace. So I just want to again applaud their efforts and appreciate them. So one of the first things I want to talk about was some of the technology efforts that we have going on. And the first is something we're calling, or we've kind of dubbed, the Smart Transit Program. So what this really entails is it's inspired by our technology assessment from a contractor that produced that report for us a few years ago, 49's Technology. You'll remember them because they helped us pick out various technology pieces over the years. And it was really from that report that we set the objective to implement an integrated technology roadmap, one that will guide our technology investments and efforts while ultimately supporting, your priorities and as the organization's vision to create a world-class transportation system that is accessible to all. So part of doing that means we have to take a really strategic approach to that. And last month, you were able to approve a contract with Clever Devices, and that's going to be a critical component to that program in which we're continuing to upgrade and update our smart transit systems. In that, we're going to have a variety of great programs and features, one of which you see here is on the lower part of that screen, is a screen that will be inside our buses. And this bus screen will show when what the next bus stop is, when it's arriving, and that route line map that we have seen in other systems and help improve that usability of our system and understanding. You may recall we have an initiative to enhance the status, use, and understanding of our services. And public transit has historically been somewhat challenging to get a grasp of. And so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, everyone is a little nervous when they first start. But we want to help ease that by putting systems in place that help communicate what's next, what's coming next, what to do. And this system is a big part of that. Our first phase of that system is going to be focused on BRT, our Bus Rapid Transit Service. So next week, our professionals will be meeting from throughout our organization. We'll kick off the implementation plan for the new CAD AVL system. And then over the next year, our teams will work together to design, configure, and install this first phase of the project for our upcoming rapid service. The key milestones are shown here on the screen, and by the end of September, we should have solid dates for every one of these milestones, and so that will help guide our next steps and our plans. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is the depth and breadth of this program. So this technology project is the largest technology project that we've implemented, at least in my time here, and it will tie in and integrate with systems that we've never, existing systems, and also share and create systems that we've never had before that are needed. One is like that onboard communication system, being able to adjust and affect the announcements in real time on every bus or transit mode. This would have been extremely helpful during the pandemic so that we could communicate live updates as they were happening. It also will create a customized alert system for our customers, and so that way we can unify how we communicate with our customers and have a single point of truth for where they can get updates. It'll also revolutionize the way we dispatch and that we create operations. So it'll tie in maintenance systems and our operation systems so that we can understand where buses are on the yard, as well as what type of maintenance features or preventative maintenance needs to occur. So all of these things continue to build on one another and create not only value for our customers, but for our internal customers as well, which is our operations and maintenance teams. Ultimately, we want that to drive, our mission and our vision, and also create efficiency so that we can continue to do more, even with less when that's required. So in the coming months, I really do look forward to sharing more about this. I appreciate those of you who attended the last APTA conference. We got to meet and kind of look at those systems. And if you're like me, some of the speak went right over my head sometimes, because it gets so into the weeds in regards to operations analysis, and will also help with us learn more about what we do every day. Another important facet of what we're doing in IT is taking care of what we already have. So while it's important to implement new technology, that preventative maintenance and taking care of it is extremely important. And so I want to talk a little bit about our Pylon Rehab project. And so about 4 years ago, we installed all these pylons and technology along the streetcar route. And as a reminder, we have 22 platforms, all with the same hardware configuration. And then over the last year, we began to see these systems fail and reach their end of life. And these systems are in a constant on mode. So think about leaving your TV on all the time, setting it outside, and it's in the heat, the weather, everything else. You have people touching it, picking at it, sometimes knocking on it. We'll leave it at that. But they endure quite a bit. And so what we have to do is we really have to take a look at how do we take care and maintain those. And again, just remember, the last 4 years, we all, in addition to this equipment, has experienced extreme weather conditions, from Arctic colds, February before last, to this extreme long-term heat. And so that all impacts not only you and me, but it also impacts that IT equipment that's sitting outside. So maintaining this investment is critical. Here's a couple of reasons why. Each pylon is an important part of our streetcar's revenue system. So if you'll remember, we have a sponsorship program, and being able to display sponsorship messages is extremely important on that system. The other also is that it's a vital tool for our customers. It allows us to communicate directly where streetcars are, as well as communicate what service alerts or anything that we need to put out. And we have learned over the years how important and how much people rely on those systems. This will also be something that Clever Devices plugs into. So this is, again, that integration is really important. And so before I go into the next part of our presentation, I'd like to just pause, and if you have any questions about the technology or some of the things I've talked about just so far, I'd be glad to answer any questions on that. No? All right, well, thank you for your attention there. Now, next we're going to start talking a little bit about some of the marketing efforts and some of the great work our team has produced right behind us. As mentioned earlier, Cody Boyd has joined our team as our Community Engagement Officer. Now, this is a role that was left vacant by Kristen Torkelson's promotion to Senior Project Manager. So she hasn't gone away, but we are asking someone else to step in and fill these roles. So over the summer, we have had the pleasure of participating in several activities, one of which was the Ward 2 and Town Hall, and we had a great turnout there and really enjoyed our time together there. We also were present at the Uptown Outside event. The weather gave us a small break just for that day, and it was a beautiful day and activity and thousands of people out there, I'm sure. And we also had the opportunity to speak directly and train some of our friends over at the Dale Rogers Training Institute Center. And that was a great opportunity because those individuals are training others. This is a train the trainer situation. Our operations team and as well as our community engagement officer, they partnered together, brought a bus out, they did a trip, walked through every step, and then we also had the chance to hear what are some of the obstacles or barriers that they're having, or what kind of issues maybe do their clients have when trying to use public transit. So it was a great way for us to answer questions, sometimes dispel myths or just perceptions of things, and then also really, again, make a connection, really give us a chance to rebuild relationships that have been lost over the years with the pandemic just due to not being able to meet together. The image on the my right up here, if you're looking at it, is something that we've been working on a while with our operations team. One of the things that has been very clear is that customers who haven't used transit in a while, or new customers, and then also those when we need to communicate what's the etiquette or the proper way to ride transit. These are going to be rules that have been established not by marketing as to what is most politically correct way to say things or necessarily, or maybe what we would we think it is, but our operators, they filled out surveys. Jesse did a great job of facilitating dialogue with our operations team. And through that dialogue, we developed 15 different rules for riding. And these are really important pieces that will help ensure a smooth operation and allow the customer experience to be the best that it could possibly be. It also gives our operators something that they can refer to as a way to help reinforce things they may be saying or sharing or hearing from other sources, maybe as another operator on a different bus. But this serves as a reminder. Now, for many of us, this might seem like common sense, but this is really important in that it reminds us what is expected, and it also reinforces the pledge that we have, which we want to serve all customers and each other with goodwill and professionalism. And this gives us a benchmark for that. And so we're really pleased with the way this turned out. This will be present at our transit center, as well as on all buses, and that'll be they'll start installation of that probably in the next week or so. And so we'll see all of those there. All right, so another big effort that we've had underway is working alongside the BRT Project Implementation Group, and Kristen is leading that primarily. Cody and Kristen have worked real hard to really kick off our communications on construction updates. And we're putting out weekly updates. I know Councilman Cooper is great about sharing those, and we appreciate anyone who has the opportunity to do that. And the reason for that is because we want to mitigate and try to reduce any friction that's caused because of construction. We have construction taking place all over the city, and it's all for the betterment, usually, of our great community. So we just want to continue to give people a heads up of what's happening so they can plan their commutes appropriately. At the same time, we want to let people know what's the status of that. And so next week, we will be launching or kicking off our first project update. Not just relation to construction, although that'll be a big part of it. But we're going to put out this video. You'll be the first to watch it, besides myself. And this is just a quick way to help communicate. Here's where we are, and here's what to expect next. Oops. Can you go back for me? Go back one more and then do it. I think now go back to the video. Yeah, one more.
Hi, I'm Kristen Torkelson, Embark's Senior Project Manager for the Rapid Northwest Bus Rapid Transit Construction Project in Oklahoma City, and this is our first progress update. Since construction broke ground in late June, work to build the new bus platforms has been moving along steadily at several locations. The contractor recently completed pouring concrete for the new platforms at Northwest 56th and Portland, Northwest 36th Street and Classen, Northwest 63rd and Meridian, and the Embark Transit Center. Sidewalks and ADA curb ramps have also been completed at these 4 locations to ensure all customers can access the service. The platforms will be later outfitted with a ticket vending machine, pylon, shelter, security lighting, safety railing, bike racks, and trash receptacles to complete the stops. More than 2,600 feet of brand new sidewalk along Northwest Expressway between Villa and Penn have also been completed as part of this project. This sidewalk will serve the new BRT platform being constructed near Penn Square Mall. The remaining section of sidewalk to connect to Villa and the Belle Isle Library will be built as part of a separate MAPS 4 project in the near future. Other current BRT work includes platform construction at Northwest Expressway in Portland, platform construction at Northwest 63rd and Meridian, and waterline work at Northwest 63rd and Meridian, and waterline work at Northwest 42nd and Classen. If you're driving through these work zones, remember to observe traffic signs, slow down, and watch for workers near the roadway. There's a lot of work yet to come to build the 32 new BRT platforms. You can sign up to receive our weekly BRT construction updates and future progress updates at embarkok.com/BRT, and follow us on social media at RapidBRT.
So along with our newsletter that we put out, we'll be producing these on a periodic basis just to provide an update because we know there are a lot of people who are seeing things take place and they don't quite understand what it's about or have a hard time envisioning it. So we want to help connect all those dots. Right now, because of our subscriber base, we're able to reach about 1,600 newsletter subscribers. That's how many have signed up, as well as thousands more on our social media. We're seeing that continue to grow. So if you have an opportunity to share out or continue to encourage people to sign up for these updates, that'll be very helpful in communicating about service once that starts to arrive. Make sure I don't overclick here. So next, we're going to take a look at some of the work that we're doing with Streetcar. We're going to really focus on what's ahead. So this is next few months is extremely busy for a Streetcar as we gear up for downtown in December. So one of the things that we're exploring again is bringing back our story time with Mrs. Claus, where there was a ride and it was almost like a charter service, and we had an activity taking place at the Santa Fe Depot, which is another great opportunity to introduce people to that broader idea of public transit and what it can look like. So it's always great to see first-time visitors to some of our historic buildings. I remember the first time my daughter Lorelai saw that building, and she said, "Why would anyone want to tear this down?" So it's just a beautiful thought and how awe-inspiring some of those things are. And so I really enjoy getting to see that look on people's face when they see the work that our city employees have done to rehab and to make use of that again. Now, while Corey likes to talk a lot about concrete, I know he really loves to show you pictures of concrete, pillars, a lot of rebar and all of that, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the brighter sides of the parking industry. So thanks to Ty and Megan and their efforts, they worked very closely with the late Robbie Kinzel to develop a profile booklet about the artwork that was featured here on this piece of this facility. As you probably know, in August, Engineering News Record named Embark's Convention Center Parking Garage as the recipient of the 2022 Best Projects Award of Merit in the Government and Public Building category. And this is for the publications in Texas and Louisiana region. And this is the second time that we have received this regional award. And I think this again just speaks to your vision and the vision of our community to continue to make beautiful buildings and that engage and create placemaking in our community. And it was partly this booklet that also helped identify how public art can do just that, is create public placemaking with government entities. So we're very proud of that. If you'd ever like to see that, that's featured. We can send you a digital copy of that if you've not seen it already. We also have just kicked off some public engagement in our downtown parking area in regards to a survey for downtown OKC businesses, and so that we can better understand, what are their parking needs in relation to employee parking, especially as we look at what type of changes could occur in relation to implementing our ongoing parking plan that is a multi-year process and that we had help looking at over the last few years. So we'll be meeting with them over the next few months. Cody and Corey will be doing that. And then they will also be reporting back to you on the results of those meetings. Now, you've heard me talk before about our website development project. And as you're aware, this project was significantly impacted by the pandemic. But we are working hard to make up time. And as a reminder, we're essentially developing 8 different websites under one house of brands, so under one system. So sometimes it's hard to grasp, just get a website done and put it up there. But when we look at a system that needs to integrate with all of this technology that we're also investing in, we have to have really good development to allow us to do that. So some of the objectives here, again, is to provide a great world-class experience for the people to use, and also be a leader when it comes to transit customer service. So this is a customer service tool. It allows us to build relationships because many people use this more than calling us anymore. If you'll remember from our customer survey, we have seen a dramatic increase in activity here on the website. And so we want to continue to enhance that experience and make sure it's working for them. Just so that you can see the progress that we have over the next few months, we are going to be working very aggressively to meet this. I just clicked again, it might go ahead. But we're looking at departmental reviewing this fall with the journey planning implementation in December. Now, we're going to be bringing you a contract next month for consideration. That's going to help power and provide the engine for this journey planning. It'll also do many other things, but the most exciting part is this is going to be a one-stop shop for planning your regional public transit. It will bring in Norman. It'll bring in all of our transit services, streetcar, Spokies, parking. It'll also bring into account the City of Edmond CityLink once they come on board with it. So we'll have the ability to create a one place that everyone can plan their trips and can define how they want to get around the Oklahoma City area. Here is a concept view of what some of that might look like on a mobile device. Again, our survey tells us this is how people are accessing our website and our content is through mobile devices. And this is just one example of how they can interact with those systems. Here's a few just screens, but different places that they can go on the site. Oh, I got ahead of myself. So finally, just as I wrap up the presentation, I wanted to announce that just this week we learned that we are the recipient of a grand prize for this following commercial. So APTA has awarded Embark this commercial, and what's really remarkable and that I'd like to just to point out is that this was developed at a time where we had reduced what we could offer from a service perspective and what we were facing during the pandemic. And so this is in the category of COVID communications is how they called it. I want to point out also, this is voiced by our very own Taishika Hawley, who's here with us. And it was also, it was at this time when we first decided that we were going to take on this effort that Megan joined us. So that she got to cut her transit teeth, so to speak, on this project. And she really led it from start to finish. So I really want to give her props for taking this on. And then also the fact, you won this national award right off the bat. So again, I just want to remind you of what that looks like, and here it is.
When life is at a standstill, we notice movement. They say, we'll be back, but some of us have been here all along.
Oklahoma City is resilient. There's strength in our workers. There's courage, dedication, and drive.
To all the drivers, doers, helpers, riders, and all of those moving us forward, thank you. For those staying home, we saved you a seat.
That I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, sounds like you've been busy.
Got a few things in the fire, that's right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We've got one more program report, and that's a transit system report by Jesse.
Yep, I'm back.
You're back.
Before I start, I do want to give a perfect example of sometimes it's best to just ask people around you. So after I sat down, got a text from Mr. Scroggins and Tracy, watching back at headquarters that the transit center was finalized in 2004. So there we have it. Sometimes just ask the people that know more than you do. So we'll just jump into the transit report real quick. Just a few slides. So the first one is our fixed route, average weekday ridership. So we've seen a pretty significant increase here. So we're sitting at just almost 8,000, our average daily weekday ridership for our fixed route system. Our next slide is our average daily weeknight. So we, again, seeing a pretty significant increase there. So average daily weeknight is 419 for 2022 in July. Next slide is, excuse me. Next slide is our average daily ridership for our Embark Plus. So you'll notice a slight decrease there, down to 107. So anytime we see a slight decrease, we want to investigate, try to find out exactly what happened. So during our investigation, we found out that there were some clinics that closed. They saw a slight increase with some COVID numbers, so they closed a few clinics, so that decreased our ridership for our Embark Plus system. Our next slide is for our streetcar. Our average daily ridership was 734, and for the entire month of July, we saw 23,000. That's a decrease over last year. Again, anytime there's a decrease, we want to dig into it. So a couple of things that we noticed was we had some pretty significant rainfall in July, early July. That impacted some ridership. And then also our 4th of July weekend, the way it landed. So in 2021, 4th of July was on a Monday. This year it was on a Sunday, so we saw more events going on during the weekend of 4th of July last year. Last year than we did this year. And so there's about a 2,500 riders difference between last year and this year on 4th of July weekend. So that impacted our ridership there. Our next slide is Spokies. So increase over last year, so up to 423 rides for the entire month for Spokies. So happy to see that. And then our final slide is our river. So we saw a decrease here over last year, down to 723. Our biggest reason for that was we lost an entire weekend in early July. Again, we had that significant rainstorm July 7th, and that caused some power lines to go down the river, and so we lost an entire weekend of ridership on our riverboat cruises. Short and sweet, that's it. So happy to take any questions.
No, any questions? All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I would have a motion to receive our program reports. The motion passes. Thank you. All right, any items from the trustees? You surely have something to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. If I could, wanted to just spend a couple minutes providing like a verbal report of some recent RTA activities, the Regional Transportation Authority of Central Oklahoma, with COTPA having a partnership with that entity to provide administrative service support. We wanted to start, and it was a suggestion of trustees to start having a bit of an update on RTA activities during our meetings. So I guess I'll start with some recent activities of the RTA, and again, we'll be providing regular monthly updates, so some of this you'll hear again. But basically, as you know, the RTA is studying high-capacity transit connecting Edmond, Oklahoma City, Norman, and Tinker Air Force Base. And so currently, the corridor, north-south corridor, if you will, from Edmond, Oklahoma City, and Norman, it's progressing along rather quickly. When you think of these long-term planning projects, basically the mode, the alignment, using the BNSF railroad right-of-way, and really even some modeling on the service levels is ongoing. The RTA is also engaged in negotiations with BNSF, and those negotiations continue to move forward. So the north-south corridor, if you will, is well ahead of where we are in terms of determining the best way to go east to connect to Tinker. With the east corridor, the work this coming fiscal year is going to primarily focus on determining that final alignment. In other words, which streets, which corridors do we connect to get out to Tinker, and then what is the mode? Is it bus rapid transit? Is it light rail? Is it designed so that if it is bus rapid transit, it can be converted to light rail later? Those are the kind of decisions that we're looking at in terms of the corridors and the planning. And then in terms of just kind of some of the administrative functions, if you will, of the RTA, as you know, the RTA is now comprised of 3 member cities, Edmond, Oklahoma City, and Norman. And so as such, each of the member cities have been asked to present an amended and restated trust indenture to their city councils. And so that will basically update the indenture to reflect the current membership of the cities. And it also changes the board composition a bit in that each remaining member city will be asked to add one additional board member. So Oklahoma City will have 3 members on the board, Edmond will have 2, and Norman will have 2. And so anyway, that's, that updated indenture has been sent to all the member cities, and I believe at this time, it's tentatively planned to go to council in September, specifically September 13th, but the agenda item is currently being routed, and it will be considered with all the other agenda items for that day. And then finally, Michael had mentioned some coverage of the RTA by OETA, and so would recommend, and we can, if you're interested, we can certainly send you the link to that story. There also, the RTA also has some coverage in the Chamber's Velocity publication. I believe it's the Velocity that they do. So you'll see some coverage there. And then I was fortunate enough to join a couple of the board members as they traveled to Salt Lake City for an APTA, that's the American Public Transportation Association conference, specifically for board administrators and board members. And we got a lot of good information, of course, from the conference itself, but I think as, or maybe even more importantly, with some dialogue the RTA was able to have with UTA. UTA is the Utah Transit Authority. And, you know, back in the, I think it's early 90s is when they really started getting their system off the ground. And so they were really able to provide, you know, some, I guess, some best practices, lessons learned as they, you know, UTA, meaning UTA, moved forward with a voter initiative to secure dedicated funding for transit. So it was a really good, I think, session, lesson learned. And again, UTA was an incredible host. We rode all kinds of transit while we were up there. We rode the commuter rail, we rode the light rail, the BRT. So it was a really good trip. And then finally, we were able to tour a rail car, or I should say a locomotive manufacturing company while we were there, Stadler Rail, and it was very interesting to see that production facility. So anyway, that's a quick update of what's going on with the RTA, and again, we'll be including that in the program reports as we move forward.
Well, Salt Lake City's got quite a streetcar going north and south.
They've got a lot of fixed guideway, a lot of rail. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I'll end the meeting with some advice I gave my grandkids, and any of you that have children, how to make straight A's. Use a ruler. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're a little old for dad jokes.
Oh, am I? Okay. All right, meeting adjourned.